So I played and finished Shadow of the Erdtree and took a few days to collect my thoughts. I was a lonely voice in the wilderness who said that Elden Ring was not a masterpiece, that its huge open-world map hurt the core of the series, that its best-in-the-world art and level design were hiding huge gameplay and balance issues that made the whole thing kind of fall apart if you were over or under-leveled, and that it had a fraction of the replay value of the previous games because of its bloated size and length. I also said that while all From games are difficult, and Sekiro is, in my opinion, the best action game ever designed, the kind of difficulty on offer with Elden Ring was unfun for players like me. That it felt almost impossible to get the same kind of enjoyment out of Elden Ring's late-game bosses because you ended up being pushed into spamming them to death with overpowered Ashes of War rather than learning clear and readable movesets. I also said that Malenia's waterfowl dance was a terrible sign of what lessons FromSoft was taking from the slave-like devotion they have created in their players. I tried to argue to the people defending Malenia that if any kind of difficulty is fine, the developers will naturally keep going along the same path until it becomes the kind of frustrating that's no longer interesting. I am obviously in a tiny minority of people. Elden Ring sold ridiculously well because open world games are hugely popular. Now, it is the rare open world game that doesn't annoy the shit out of me, so right off the bat, I was going to enjoy this less than carefully curated linear but dense levels. In the lead up to Shadow of the Erdtree, a lot of the press focused on the game being significantly smaller with a better ratio of old school levels to open world wandering. Miyazaki specifically talked about trying to get the feeling of exploring a Souls level out of the experience of exploring the open world. This had me intrigued and excited for the game. When I heard that there was a leveling system within the DLC itself, I was also intrigued because I could not possibly bring myself to starting over a new save and playing 60 hours to get to Moog. So I used an NG+1 save I had where I'd already gotten to Langdell before stopping because the NG+1 gameplay is so badly balanced in Elden Ring, man. In the base game, NG+1 is comically easy. So easy, it's impossible to not get bored before you even make it halfway through. But I booted that character up, quickly killed Moog, and waited for the release. And after thoroughly playing the DLC, I am more certain than ever that Elden Ring is the least enjoyable game to play that From has made in their modern run of Souls-likes. It is only the immense talent of the art team that keeps this DLC from being a slog, and it's not because it's too hard. Now, if you like what I have to say, or are enraged at what I have to say, do me a favor either way and like or dislike and sub and comment, yada yada yada. Shadow of the Erdtree, after the intro. The game isn't too hard. Alright, we're going to get into the serious issues I still have with the very concept of an open world Dark Souls game next, but we should start with the issue that was most divisive about the DLC. For the first few days, there were a bunch of reports and news stories about Shadow of the Erdtree being quote-unquote review bombed because it's too difficult. First of all, that's not review bombing. Giving a negative review because you don't like how the game plays isn't review bombing. That's reviewing. Review bombing is when a ton of people go back 3 years to change their reviews because anti-cheat was added, or some microtransaction was too expensive, or a character turned out to be either gay or not gay, and everyone needs to instantly demonstrate their Kulturkampf loyalty. Giving a thumbs down because you don't like the progression system or the enemy design, that's just a review. But either way, this discussion instantly took on the tenor of every modern discussion in our culture, from politics to movies to games. Meaning people arguing against mutually constructed straw men. Complaints about difficulty instantly were rebutted with proof that everything in the game could be overcome. The only problem is, saying something is too difficult is not the same as saying something is impossible. My complaints with the boss design in the base game was not that they were impossible to beat. It's that they were frustrating and created a situation where you're pushed into playing a style of game I don't find enjoyable. I beat Shadow of the Erdtree with relative ease. I don't think any boss took me more than 8 to 10 tries, but I still hate how many of the bosses are designed, and I very much hate how many of the elite enemies are designed. The very first enemy you encounter in this DLC is an elite who never stops attacking, has ranged attacks, heal punishes, and spins your camera around as it jumps all over the place. The enemy obviously can be learned and fought and defeated with any weapon, but why would you do that? Why allow yourself to be killed and frustrated 5 times when instead you can spam it to death with an Ash of War? The bosses can, almost certainly, be defeated with no summons and any weapon, but the movesets are so chaotic and fast and the damage is so high that again, it's simply not fun to do that. This time, I didn't even try to fight these bosses without the spirit summons because it was instantly apparent from the first major boss what we were dealing with. I'm also not going to wander a map and come back later. I don't even understand how people think that's fun. The very first ever jail you come to has an NPC that kills you in 2 hits. I don't know, I beat him after like 5 tribes, but I still don't understand the point of this. Why is the design trying to push you to leave and come back? What's gained other than wasting my time? Just like the Black Knight in Dark Souls 1, or the Ogre in Dark Souls 2, or the big fat black dude with the cleaver in Bloodborne, or the Sentinel in the base game, I will fight this thing until I kill it. I'm not going to come back later. I think of this stuff like so. I may as well just sit here for 20 minutes trying to kill the enemy or NPC boss, because wandering off for a while has a serious chance of me becoming over-leveled and making the boss pointless to fight. In the base game, am I supposed to level up until the tree sentinel is easy to kill? Am I really supposed to go find fragments to make this NPC boss trivial? If not, how am I supposed to know when I have collected the correct amount of fragments for the boss to now be fought at the level the developers intended? Am I just supposed to check back every time I find a fragment to make sure I've landed in the Goldilocks zone? I don't like it. I don't find wandering an open world looking for fragments to be enjoyable. The open world sections are boring, and I definitely do not want to end up over-leveled for bosses. The base game becomes absurdly easy if you clear entire areas before fighting the bosses. It's way too easy to accidentally break the game by leveling up, and I assume the DLC is the same. So instead, once again, I moved through the world in a natural way. If I saw some structure that intrigued me, I checked it out. If I saw something that looked like it was of interest on the map, I went there. If I stumbled upon a cave or a dungeon, I cleared it. But I did not scour the map for fragments because that feels unnatural and boring to me. As such, I arrived at the main progression bosses at the fragment level I assume they would have intended the average player to. So for the first big boss, fragment level 3. And that first boss was a sign that every issue I had with the base game's late game bosses were doubled down on. The first boss you'll fight continues to show that FromSoft has the best animators in the world working for them. Everything about this fight is a triumph of art, music, graphics, particle effects, and animations. Nothing in gaming looks as amazing as the bosses FromSoft has started to make. But all that stuff contributes to the fights becoming visibly incomprehensible. 90% of the story bosses will hit you as you are summoning the moment you come through the door. This one uses a ranged attack, and a truly absurd number of bosses, including the final boss, will instantly do a charge attack the second you walk through the door. I find this frustrating and annoying. Why? In the first attempt at this boss, I made it through the first phase fine. The attacks are pretty well telegraphed, but already the same camera problems begin creeping in. The bosses move in a way that spins your camera around or gets you stuck in a place where you can't see anything. They move in a way that locking onto them spins your camera up and around, but they're too mobile to fight them not locked on. Then, the second phase fills the screen with particle effects layered onto that same camera spinning moveset. Now, this boss wasn't hugely difficult. I think it took me 3 or 4 tries, but I still don't like it. My deaths repeatedly felt like I could not see or figure out what killed me. I died way more than 4 times fighting Owlfather and Sekiro, but there's nothing in that fight that overwhelms you with particle effects or leaves you feeling like you cannot figure out what the hell is going on. The mobility of the bosses in Elden Ring means the camera is constantly spinning on you or jerking up and then back down as they jump 1,000 feet into the air. It doesn't make the bosses harder, per se, or more difficult. It makes them more frustrating to deal with. All of the main bosses also seem to have a ton of attacks that require you to run away, and most of them kill you the first time they do that until you figure it out. The Renala fight has a bunch of area attacks that require you to run away. She also has a spell attack that will almost certainly one-hit kill you the first time. Like this. That sucks. Gaius, which was the most frustrating boss in the game for me, has all of this stuff. He flies all over the place spinning your camera. He jumps in the air to flip your camera up. He has a ton of AoE attacks that kill you the first time. He has a charge that I never figured out how to dodge. Sometimes I dodged it, and sometimes I didn't, and I never figured out why. Eventually, I just used a shield and tried to block it. He also has a slam down attack that kills you. All of them have weird elemental attacks that I don't understand. The finger boss has a charge that seems impossible to dodge. It has a laser attack that is unbelievably unintuitive and took 5 deaths to even understand what the game wanted me to do. All of these things might be fine if the player did not have boss delete weapons on them at all times. So I'd try to fight them once normally, get annoyed, and then kill them with magic or Ash of War spam. The choice is a frustrating inability to figure out what the hell is happening, or cheese. I don't like that. No previous game pushed me to use magic or summons or weapon arts. I never played a magic build in Souls games because it feels cheap. I get no satisfaction out of spamming Moonveil at a boss until it dies. The final boss is a total clusterfuck of particle effects, non-stop attacks, AoE attacks, instant charge attacks, and a ton of these will basically one-shot you, even though at this point I was at 17 Erdtree fragments. The final boss, 90% of the time, will instantly charge you and take half of your health while you're using the summons. He has multiple attacks that I never figured out what the hell you're supposed to do. He has a gravity spell that shoots stuff out of the ground. I assume you're supposed to jump, but sometimes that worked, and sometimes it didn't. He, like almost every single main boss, has a huge arena explosion. I couldn't figure out how the hell you're supposed to deal with this. I never figured out where's the cue to dodge, and I was hit by it every single time, often being killed by it. At this point, after 5 tries, I had no desire to learn the fight. I went online, found that people were beating him with a great shield and Scarlet Rot, and killed him on my second try after respeccing to that build. Now, I understand that some people might find that fun, but I simply do not. I don't find it fun to Google how to kill a boss. That sucks badly, in my opinion. Never before in all of their games did I once Google anything while I was playing. Never. And yet in the base game and DLC, I had to Google shit all the time. I Googled NPCs, I Googled bosses, I Googled where the stupid Korok seed fragments were. I don't consider it exploration if Google is involved, and the fights are tuned in a way that the stupid fragments are extremely helpful if you don't want to spend 20 minutes draining their bloated health bars. So the bosses aren't so difficult that you can't beat them, but some of them are too difficult to beat in a way that is fun. Flinging magic at a boss isn't fun. Using summons isn't fun. Spamming Ashes of War at it isn't fun. Using a Great Shield definitely isn't fun. Again, I'm in the minority here, but I just don't like it. I dislike it so much, I'm not sure I would want to play another game that's designed like this one. And I 100% never, ever want to play another open world Souls-like, because, man, I hate it. The open world sucks. One of the most lauded aspects of Elden Ring was its open world design, and I agree that Elden Ring has one of the best open worlds we've seen in recent memory from the point of view of art and level design. I don't think it's as good as New Vegas or Horizon Zero Dawn, because to me, an open world's core function is narrative and not gameplay. But you know what, it's still a top flight open world for sure. The problem isn't the way that From designs their open world. These people are the most talented developers in the world. My issue with Elden Ring's open world is I don't think an open world works with the Dark Souls genre as well as a linear one does. It doesn't work narratively because it's basically impossible to follow NPC quests when they can be literally anywhere on a huge map. It doesn't work with the basic function of the show genre, which is the tension that comes from making your way from bonfire to bonfire. When you can just ride by on a horse, the tension is gone. When you add that to the fact that I actually don't like most open world games, it was always going to be the case that Elden Ring would not be my favorite. I didn't make a video about it, but Team Ninja's new game is a catastrophe. Taking Neo and dumping it in an open world sucks. So it was music to my ears when I heard Miyazaki say he thought there was an issue with the open world, and they specifically tried to adjust the balance between open field and legacy levels. And indeed, there are many improvements. All of the caves and mines and stuff are so much better in the DLC. There's way less copy and paste, and there's way fewer of them. And the open world is definitely smaller and more constrained, which is good. My issue is, while they did amazingly make the open world kinda feel more like legacy dungeons, I found it massively frustrating. I don't like the feeling of being lost. I find it annoying. People praise the fact that wandering the world you'd see things that you couldn't figure out how to get to. I hate that. I absolutely despise it. Massive sections of the map are hidden behind caves or weird looping paths or confusing ruins. Once again, I ended up Googling how to get to map fragments because after hours, I hadn't been able to figure out how to get to the eastern and upper western parts of the map. And the process of slowly backtracking, trying to find a cave or a place to drop down, that sounds awful to me. There's an incredibly fine balance in a Souls game that I like. The way forward is clear, and there's light exploration to find cleverly hidden shortcuts or pathways. But you never have to spend 10 minutes wandering around with your eyes glued to a cliff. This is, of course, personal taste. But I just don't like this. I don't like the base game open world, and I like the DLC open world even less because it's confusing. However, I will say that the actual proper levels are some of the very best they've ever made. The Shadowkeep is unbelievably great. The Flooded Church District is fantastic. The castles that have the main early bosses are all really well done. Just like the base game, they're the best Souls levels ever made. But I still maintain that I would have preferred all of the proper levels stitched together and interconnected like Dark Souls 1 to having them spread out on a huge open world map. Shadow of the Erdtree definitely improves the open world of the base game in that there's way less horse riding in total, but man, there's still a shitload of horse riding. And all of that just feels like a massive waste of time to me. Wrapping up. Listen, I'm not the kind of person who would have given the DLC a thumbs down on Steam. I gave it a thumbs up. I think its art, animations, game feel, music, and the sheer amount of stuff means that the game is worth playing and it's worth its money. There were many parts I enjoyed for sure. I loved the actual Souls levels. I really liked the dungeons, and especially the places where the jars are made, but I still maintain that this is the least enjoyable of all the games in the series. I simply don't think an open-world Souls-like works as well as a linear or interconnected Souls-like. When I think of replaying a From game, this remains the one I am least likely to play. I recently replayed Dark Souls 2, and I enjoyed that game more, despite its janky animations and movements and game feel. I maintain that Sekiro is incomprehensibly better than Elden Ring. I think Bloodborne, even with its awful performance, is a better game. I think Dark Souls 1 is a better game. And while Elden Ring is a better game than Dark Souls 2, I enjoy playing Dark Souls 2 more. In the DLC, I don't like the progression system. I hate the idea of leveling up by finding fucking Korok seeds. If those fragments had all been cleverly hidden within the legacy dungeons, I probably would have liked it a lot. But a ton of them are just laid out in the open world, man, or in some random spot in an insubstantial side area. Near the end of the final level, I ended up Googling them because I was only level 11 and enemies were absurdly tanky. And I found that a ton of the fragments were these little guys with pots on their heads or like a mile away from a bonfire. It took like an hour to track these things all down, even looking for it on Google. And when it comes to the enemy and boss design, there's just too much frustrating stuff. There are these lion knights in the final level. They're just insanely toxic to fight, man. Just spamming attacks and AoE explosions so that the best way to kill them is to spam them to death before they spam you to death. The bosses are just kind of a mess of visual noise and AoEs and explosions and charges. The final boss is almost impossible to parse visually. There's just a ton of shit all over the screen. None of these enemies or bosses took me more than 5 tries, aside from Gaius, which took me like 8 to 10. But that's only because the difficulty is so high, you're better off spamming them to death with Moonveil or whatever other fucking weapon you're using. Maybe other people don't mind spamming things to death with magic, but I don't like it. This weekend I replayed the new Lords of the Fallen, which reviewed badly because of its supposed difficulty. The game is full of ambushes and tanky enemies and literal spam. I probably died in that game more than I did in Shadow of the Erdtree. But the balance of difficulty and player kit is more fun to me. I'd rather die by being sniped while 3 dogs attack me than to die without really understanding what's going on. And I'd rather overcome that by being careful and strategic with the standard player kit than overcome it by spamming things to death with Moonveil. This isn't an objective analysis, man. I'm quite comfortable saying that Elden Ring is objectively a great game, but I don't love it. I'm not even sure I like it very much at this point. Just like with the base game, I finished it and my first thought was, I'm going to be very sad if this is what these games are like going forward. If we've entered a period of spam or be spammed, the series has moved beyond me. If bosses have attacks that I don't understand instantly and intuitively, I don't like it. And if the games are designed around summons or OP weapon arts or magic, I'm not going to enjoy that nearly as much as I enjoy the simple brilliance of Sekiro. My thought on Shadow of the Erdtree is that the series has jumped the shark. It's gotten too complicated, too visually impressive. The truly incredible art and animation is driving the game design, and I don't like that as much as the game design driving the art and the animation. I am glad people love this, I really am, but I simply don't. Alright, thanks for coming. I'll see you next time. Bye.